We are now on air. Time for a total takeover.
It's finally here. Welcome to a new episode.
It's about to go down.
My response to that is bullshit. Bullshit. There is no way that's what they were searching for. There's no way. I watched all the coverage last night. I've read everything. And I read Andy McCarthy this morning, who, as it turns out, agrees with me. I agree with him. He's a former top prosecutor, former assistant U.S. attorney. And he says the same thing. This is about January 6th. If you believe this is about classified documents having to do with bullshit Trump took with him when he left office, your head is in the sky. This is about January 6th and the never-ending desire to get Donald Trump on something. They don't want him to run for election again. They're mad he did not get convicted on the first or the second impeachment. They're mad that he did not get pursued criminally by the New York DA. They are mad that Russiagate fell apart, and they are mad that he's leading in the polls. He's crushing DeSantis. His candidates of choice all made it into office, virtually all of them last week, and they are prepared to unleash hell. The Democrats play dirty, and Merrick Garland is very clearly willing to go along with that. He's been moving in the concentric circles toward Donald Trump over the past several weeks, going after his top advisors, subpoenaing them. You know, we've seen close Trump advisors in handcuffs, dragged away as if they're mobsters. This is really getting alarming, and the American public deserves answers.
On a different topic, the FBI is serving a search warrant on the former president's residence in Florida. Was the president or anyone at the White House aware of that search warrant, or has anyone at the White House or the president been briefed in the aftermath of that search warrant being executed?
No, the president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
Thanks, Green. Do you consider Donald Trump to be a political rival of President Biden?
I'm not going to speak to that from here.
Well, you talk about Trump all the time. So do you consider him to be...
I don't talk about Trump all the time.
Ultra MAGA, you guys were criticizing his handling of COVID last week. You've mentioned his January 6th response a couple days ago. So can you say, based on all that, I didn't say anything about Mar-a-Lago. I'm just asking you if you consider the president to be...
I'm saying from here, I'm not going to comment on that.
Does the president still want to think that he would be very fortunate to run against Trump in 2024, like he has said before?
Again, I'm not going to comment on...
It's just a quote from the president. In the next election, I'd be very fortunate if I had that same man running against me. Does he still
All I
think
can
that?
tell you, Peter, is that the president intends to run in 2024.
Is there a concern here that if you guys don't say more, then these Republicans who are accusing this White House of weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI, that's going to become the public sentiment? If you guys don't say once and for all, we are not doing that.
First of all, we're just not going to comment on the Department of Justice investigation.
Okay,
we're just not going to comment on that.
Is this White House weaponizing the Justice Department and the FBI against political opponents?
The president has been very clear from before he was elected, very clear on this. Hold on. Throughout his time in office.
I heard the quote. We will be playing the quote tonight at 6 o'clock. Is this administration weaponizing the Justice Department and the FBI against political opponents?
Peter, the president believes in the rule of law. The president believes in the independence of the Department of Justice.
That's a yes or no?
No, that is no. It's a yes or a no for you. I'm answering the question. You may not like it, but I'm answering the question, and I'm answering the question, and I'm telling you that we are not going to comment on a criminal investigation. The president has been very clear. I laid out what his thoughts were back on January 7th in 2021 about how he saw the Department of Justice. And I'm just going to leave it there. We're not going to comment from here, from this White House, on a criminal investigation that is currently happening.
And just one more about the Inflation Reduction Act. Who around here decided that Americans were crying out for more interaction with the IRS?
I don't understand your question. You have to say more.
Do you think it's going to be popular when the 87,000 new employees hired by the IRS go around and start auditing people to pay for the Inflation Reduction Act?
So it's very clear, the IRS commissioner was very clear on this. He said that on the record, that it will only apply to those earning over $400,000. The commissioner said, and I quote, "These resources are absolutely not about increasing audit scrutiny on small businesses or middle-income Americans, as we have been planning our investment of these enforcement resources is designed around Treasury directive that audit rates will not rise relative to recent years for households making under $400,000. So
no
this is focus on those who are corporate wealthy tax cheats that congressional Republicans wanted to defend. That's who they wanted to defend. They wanted to defend those corporate tax cheats. This is not about that. This is not about folks who make less than $400,000.
So no new audits on anybody making under $400,000 a year?
Very clear, no.
Let's bring in Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor and constitutional law expert. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So why a search warrant instead of a subpoena?
That's a mystery to me. I'm not too sure why, unless they were alleging that they feared that the president would destroy the evidence if he was given notice. But the president wasn't at the residence. This would seem to be an easy issue to issue a subpoena and ask for voluntary disclosure and also access to the site. The access to the home was granted, obviously, before. 2 months ago, the National Archives searched the residence and removed 15 boxes. It's not clear why this material was not removed. It's also not clear if there's been communication since then raising concern over documents that are considered still missing or possibly present at the residence.
Sure. You know, Professor, given the fact that this is a former president, something like this has never happened before. Of course, the FBI can't just run in willy-nilly. They had to go in front of a judge and they had to present evidence to suggest probable cause. And the judge signed off on it. And it makes you think that the FBI and the DOJ knew exactly what they were looking for, and it makes you wonder whether or not somebody, perhaps in Donald Trump's inner circle or somebody else close to the former president, may have told them exactly what to look for and exactly where it was.
Yeah, there has to be particularity in terms of these applications. They have to be specific. The court clearly found probable cause that there would be classified material still at the residence. So that much we can assume. There is a law that allows for punishment up to 3 years for concealing or retaining these types of documents. But that is a specific intent crime. It's not a negligent standard. You have to show that, in this case, President Trump or some other individual specifically intended to withhold such material. We just don't know what the evidence is at this point. But those are going to be part of the questions being asked as we go forward.
Professor, it is common for former political appointees as well as federal officials to go back and forth on these records when they decide to go back to public life. I think a lot of Americans have questions concerning why there was such a heavy-hand approach toward Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton when we know for a fact there were certain records that were destroyed, that were under scrutiny. So do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, I just testified on the Presidential Records Act and the specific seizure of those 15 boxes back in February. This is an act that is not heavily enforced. It certainly has not historically been criminally enforced. In fact, some of the most egregious cases were handled rather lightly. Sandy Berger being an example. He actually stuffed documents in his socks. And snuck them out of a secure location, leaving them at a spot to be retrieved later. He received no jail time and just pled guilty to a misdemeanor. He wasn't even forced to lose his security clearance permanently. It was just a 3-year suspension. So this is an act that is not known for robust criminal enforcement. So that does raise these questions as to this all-hands-on-deck raid that occurred.
Yeah, it appears that we're in different times now. Would he be banned from public office if he's found guilty? According to the Daily Mail, if he is found guilty, Trump could face a maximum sentence of 3 years in prison. What is the motivation here?
Well, first of all, that was raised first by Mark Elias, who is the Clinton campaign lawyer who was accused of misrepresenting the funding of the Steele dossier and being involved in that whole scandal. I strongly disagree. There is a reference in the law of disqualification, but the Constitution establishes the rules for impeachment and disqualification that can follow. Many of us do not believe that Congress can add to those qualifications. In fact, the Supreme Court has previously ruled that states can't do that with regard to Article 1. They can't impose limits on members of Congress. The same is likely true about Article 2 and the president's position. So I do not believe, as hopeful as these tweets have been coming from the left, that this is a road to disqualification.
Right. Professor, do you think it is a coincidence that on the same day that they execute this search warrant is the same day that Axios published those images of alleged ripped up White House documents in the bottom of a toilet? The White House, former President Trump's team said that never happened. They denied all that. But nonetheless, you know, a big Maggie Haberman story, a big Axios story yesterday showing supposed torn up classified stuff trying to be flushed down a toilet.
Well, there has been an amazing synergy and timing. We saw that with the January 6th committee and the grand jury moves by the administration. This does seem to be running on parallel tracks. And in this case, the media story did play into this argument that, well, maybe the president could destroy these documents. I don't know what proof beyond that media story you would have for that type of claim. The family has insisted that they were cooperating. This is not the first raid where the targets have said that it came out of the blue, that they were cooperating and would have voluntarily submitted. We've seen these arrest warrants and search warrants issued when many of us have said, why? Why wouldn't you just allow this to be done voluntarily?
You know, Professor, I think what a lot of Americans are concerned about this morning, even the gloating in the media, to have people that are a part of the Democratic Party to gloat about the president potentially not being able to run. I know you disagree with it, but the fact that they think that is true, does that send chills to you as a civil libertarian, as someone that is a constitutional expert? It seems, we don't know if this, I want to see the warrant, just like you do, Professor, but it seems like political opponents are being targeted here.
Well, it's astonishing. You know, you've played the clip of this former prosecutor on another network saying this is the whole enchilada to keep him from running again. And it was a remarkable statement because it's suggesting that there's nothing wrong with the Justice Department raiding this property and potentially charging this former president in order to keep him off the ballot, to have that political motivation. Well, that's going to be rather, give the pun, hard for a court to swallow. Right. But it's going to have an even more robust or pronounced impact on many voters. They already have a distrust for the FBI because of proven bias among some individuals in that department and falsified material and misrepresentations in order to get the Russian collusion investigation going. This would really fuel that distrust. And these types of actions are tearing us apart. And it has to weigh on the Attorney General as to whether this was necessary, not getting the material back. If there's classified material there, it can be a violation of federal law, and that material can be acquired. But the question is how it was done. And we'll learn more about that, I hope, in the coming days.
Yeah, we've heard Alan Dershowitz said that they better have a smoking gun. They better have proof. Newt Gingrich brought up the abuse of power issue and said, if they can do this to a former president, they can do this to any of us, any American. And you're a constitutional law professor and expert. And he says, if this is the future, the Constitution fails to exist. Kevin McCarthy, Congressman McCarthy, vows to oversight vows oversight of the DOJ if Republicans win in November. This was his tweet. I've seen enough. The Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponizing politicization. When Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and have no stone unturned. Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar. What is your reaction?
Disqualify the president had
Okay,
the
start
opposite
over. Sorry,
effect.
we lost the beginning of that.
Out about running, it's probably no longer existent, and his followers are now entirely fired up over that prospect. What concerns me is that these types of actions can not only divide us, but fuel this age of rage. We've got to have mature voices that are heard and listened to in the days to come. You know, I am not convinced this raid was necessary to acquire this material, and I would really like to see why this step had to be taken.
Yeah, Professor, you know, it was years ago we heard about Strzok and Page at the FBI, and then we heard about Andy McCabe, and we know about James Comey. They're all gone. But the FBI of today is run by Director Christopher Wray, who was appointed by Donald Trump. And I've heard a number of, you know, people pontificating over the last 12 hours or so saying that the FBI has been weaponized. You know, there are a lot of people who regard the FBI as the finest law enforcement agency in the world. Do you think that the FBI is political and has been weaponized against former President Donald Trump?
No, I would not paint the entire FBI that way. We should all be proud of what the work the FBI does.
100%.
That doesn't mean that we have to be blind to the problems that we've seen. There are serious questions involving the Whitmer kidnapping case and entrapment and the conduct of FBI agents in that case. There are other issues recently that raise questions as to the potential bias of some people within the department. We can look at that without declaring the entire department rotten to the core. But, you know, the concern among citizens is that you mentioned Peter Strzok, you know, who was famous or infamous for saying that he had an insurance policy in case Trump is elected. Well, for people that remember that, their concern is that this is another form of indemnification, that it's another insurance policy being played out. We don't know that to be the case, but people shouldn't dismiss that as a legitimate concern. And that's the reason I think that Attorney General Merrick Garland has a duty to protect the integrity of this investigation. Nobody's expecting a wholesale disclosure or a press conference like James Comey, but I think he does have a burden to come forward and answer a few of these more procedural questions as to why this was necessary, to assure people that this isn't a form of bias or a new insurance policy being taken out on the former president.
Professor, I'm so glad that you set it up that way, because I think there is a difference between the rank and file agents that do their job on a day-to-day basis and the leadership, which are normally political appointees in the FBI. Even Christopher Wray just testified before Congress and said some of the allegations of the investigation with Hunter Biden and the way that it was handled is deeply troubling. That was a quote from him. But I have to say, Professor, this is not the first time the FBI has chosen a political opponent. They have a long history of choosing people to go after, all the way down to Dr. Martin Luther King. There has been troubling allegations about that. So my question for you now that is gone from left to right, is this the time now from some sort of reforms to the way the FBI conducts its business? And I mean, I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about the agents at the local field offices, but there's always been question with the political leadership in the FBI.
Yeah, I do think that the FBI is still lacking transparency, and that it is also not forthcoming with Congress on critical issues of this kind. You mentioned Hunter Biden. That's a serious concern. You know, there are issues raised as to another agent who was accused of downplaying these allegations at the outset, essentially scuttling aspects of the investigation. More importantly, Merrick Garland has much to answer for in the failure to appoint a special counsel. I can no longer think of a plausible argument against a special counsel in this case. We have more evidence of the president meeting with business associates of his son in the White House. Now, it appears quite clearly that his denial of any knowledge or involvement of these dealings seems rather demonstrably false. And that means that he may have lied about an influence peddling scheme that might have acquired millions of dollars. Yet the Attorney General refuses to appoint a special counsel. And the benefit of that to the president is huge, because a special counsel would likely come with a report. Even non-criminal matters would be part of that report, like influence peddling. So to answer your question, yeah, there are serious issues here.
New details emerging after the FBI stormed the private home of former President Donald Trump. The raid reportedly over an investigation into classified documents. Right. A source says agents looked at every single office, safe, and grabbed documents in boxes, and they were not being judicious about what they took. We are also learning that Trump's team voluntarily turned over 15 boxes to the government way back in January. And the former president's lawyers had a meeting with investigators in June over the issue, but they still decided to raid his place anyway. Trump coming out swinging over what happened, saying, quote, "It's a prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024. Republicans warning the DOJ and AG Garland they better be ready to explain themselves or face the consequences.
What was on the warrant? What were you really doing? What were you looking for? Why not talk to President Trump and have him give the information you're after?
We now find that justice in America is not equal. It's determined upon whether you want to go after a person or not. And you go after your political foes, I think that's wrong.
The FBI, when it comes to Trump, has lost their way. This unending desire to destroy Trump and his family is frustrating.
And the White House doesn't want to talk about it.
Is this administration weaponizing the Justice Department and the FBI against political opponents?
Peter, the president believes in the rule of law. The president believes in the independence of the Department of Justice.
That's a yes or no? Just
no,
is
that
the
is
White House.
no. It's a yes or a no for you. I'm answering the question. You may not like it, but I'm answering the question, I'm answering the question, and I'm telling you that we are not going to comment on a criminal investigation.
Judge, when I was reading that and came upon that part about classified documents, I heard you utter a two-syllable word that began with B and ended with T. Care to explain how you feel about this?
I did not utter those words. You know what are those words? Harold, my friend to the left. Oh,
I get accused of everything, and no one wants to take accountability for it.
All right, let me tell you what I think. What happened to Donald Trump last night was a continuing example of the left's attempt for the last 7 years to take this man down. That search warrant and the subsequent execution of that warrant was nothing more than a subterfuge, a fishing expedition to get whatever they can against this man, because in 7 years they have not been able to get anything against him. We've got a politicized Justice Department, a politicized FBI. All I have to tell you is we've got a Department of Justice and an FBI that is willing to sic the FBI on parents as domestic terrorists. We now have the IRS about to sic 87,000 IRS agents against the rest of us. This is classic overreach. But let me tell you about Donald Trump. You get a search warrant on presidential records? Are you kidding me? Classified records that he could unilaterally declassify when he was president. He could say he declassified them. And you come in, I was a judge. If you came to me and you said you wanted a search warrant, my first question is, why do you want a search warrant? Why not a subpoena? And if I had all the facts, I would know that this president had been working with them and had already given them 15 boxes that the media kept saying they were retrieved. But you know what? The National Association of Records Archives, National Archives Records Administration, wrote a letter saying, we obtained the cooperation of Trump representatives to locate records not transferred to the National Archives. They admitted when they kept saying, the media kept saying, oh, Trump didn't want to give them the records. Trump said, hey, look, I'm working with you. They gave him a letter saying, yeah, he was cooperating with us.
Yeah,
so now what they want to do is the FBI that lied to the FISA judges, the FBI that had an affidavit for a warrant that contained a lie by Christopher Steele, who hated Donald Trump, a dossier that was false. They get these judges to sign the warrants. This is the same FBI, the same DOJ that comes out and doesn't prosecute any wrongdoing. They want to prosecute Donald Trump for what? For an administrative error?
Well, that's the thing. So,
assuming it's an error, and I'm not willing to admit it.
Well, the thing is, I mean, what the judge is hitting on is what you had Andy McCarthy on your show to talk about. Perhaps the motive, it has nothing to do with the documents at all, but they're trying to pressure the DOJ to find evidence linking some kind of criminal activity on January 6th to Donald Trump.
Yeah, so think about the pressure on Merrick Garland, right? He's being accused essentially by people on the left of not being tough enough, of not pushing a prosecution here. They've got a grand jury that is underway right now that's looking at potential role in incitement of insurrection and the stopping of a certification of the Electoral College. So that's going on over here on this side, right? And then you have this raid that is ostensibly about this issue of preserving presidential records. But Andy McCarthy came on today and wrote a really good piece today that's in the New York Post that you can read, where he basically said, look, they're casting a wide net, exactly what Janine is saying. They're looking to fish through all of these documents and see if they can find anything that can help them in this larger picture of what they're working on with this grand jury, because they're under a lot of pressure to come up with something to get him not to run again in 2024. But, you know, one of the thing that kept striking me last night as I was watching the videos of these flashing lights outside the House, right? And I spoke to a former federal prosecutor this morning who said, you know, the demonstration of people and cars and flashing lights in front of the House. They didn't need to go in there with that kind of force and that kind of drama and theater. If they didn't get this right, this will be the biggest boondoggle in law enforcement history. It will do nothing but inspire this former president to run again and probably fire up his supporters in a way. I mean, think about it. Think about the way Roger Stone was brought in. Think about Peter Navarro. Think about all of the history here. Think about, you know, my mind goes back to James Comey going in the early stages while they were in the transition with Michael Flynn and saying, and you know, when he said, you know, just send some guys over there. They're not really with it yet. They don't really know how this works. We're just send some agents over and see what you can get out of Michael Flynn before they really figure out how this all works. It goes all the way back to this story. So they better have it. They better have it nailed down, airtight, or it's going to blow up in their faces.
But you do point out there is a pattern to this. So normally you should be able to trust the FBI, but not in the last 10 years. More. It's kind of over. But then you look at the fact that Trump is like an energy monster. Mm-hmm. They're just feeding him. This is going to make him run. This is going to, do you think that they've caused the opposite reaction?
I've never seen the base more energized. I've never seen the base more angry. I'm angry. I feel violated. The whole country feels violated. It's disgusting. They've declared war on us, and now it's game on. Imagine you're Eric Trump and you're at Mar-a-Lago. That's your home. Your mother has just died 2 weeks ago, and they're sending FBI agents with weapons into your house, violating your privacy like that. It's unbelievable. Over the Presidential Records Act, Greg, that's like a librarian sending armed agents into your house. The Presidential Records Act, first of all, we can't even trust that this warrant wasn't corrupt. I mean, they cooked up a fake warrant last time when they spied on the Trump campaign. They doctored evidence. They forged documents to get it. How do we know they're not planting evidence right now? They planted evidence with Crooked and the CIA and the FBI already. And you can't trust this judge. They said, oh, a judge must have signed off on it. The judge is an Obama donor. The judge defended Jeffrey Epstein's team. You can't trust this guy. So they go in. They'll probably do a fishing expedition. God knows what they're going to find or plant or fake. But it's also trying to freeze the Trump base. You know, you're going to vote for this guy. You know, he could be indicted soon. It's telling the Republican donors, hey, don't donate to this guy. Republican corporate guys, don't donate to this guy. He's toxic. You don't want to go near him. That's what's going on. It's intimidation. It's bullying. Look at this thing he did. He was cooperating. So he's about almost 9 months of cooperation. He's already handed over about 15 boxes. As Janine said, she's right. He could have declassified this before he left the White House. So they get in, they bring teams in already. They're showing them where his stuff is. They're showing them where they keep it. The team says, all right, keep it secure, keep it locked up. Trump's lawyers were. Trump even stopped in and swung by and said hello. Next thing you know, they send 30 men with a safe cracker. What the hell are they doing? And they told the Trump lawyers, don't look at what we're doing. Don't record what they're doing. That's not by the book.
No.
And if you look at what Hillary's done, I mean, she's acid washed 30,000 emails under subpoena. Hillary's own lawyers smashed iPhones with hammers. And Comey comes out and he says, yes, they had over 100 classified documents in her possession in Chappaqua. And yes, they did break the law, but no prosecutor would ever touch it. And then Sandy Burglar goes into the National Archives and sticks all kinds of classified documents down his pants. They didn't raid his home. 2 CIA directors had classified information on their home computers. Their homes weren't raided. An FBI director took sensitive documents outside. They didn't raid his home. This is bull, and it's going to boomerang big time. Everybody can feel it.
So, Harold, you've heard 10 minutes of commentary. What strikes you about this? This is obviously a very serious thing that went on last night, and it's affected a lot of people, right? Is this
probably the president, even more so, the former president? I look at this with a great deal of sympathy for someone who's been accused of something. And it looks as if the president may be accused of something. Now, the judge and all of us know you're innocent till proven otherwise in our country, and the president and everyone is entitled to that, and that presumption of innocence stands. But here's what I can't get my arms around. Listening to all of this, there's no doubt this is unprecedented, historic. If the Justice Department has bungled this will be a colossal, catastrophic. I'm 52 years old. It will be hard to reclaim credibility in my adult life. So they have that risk on them. 2, this is a court-approved warrant. Now, if a court approved the search warrant for my home, and they came in and that search warrant said, we believe you have 10 kilos of cocaine, 10 AK-47s, 3 documents showing you're going to work with Russia, 2 documents with China to betray our country, I'd turn that warrant right over to you, Greg. I'd turn it over to you, Judge. I'd turn it over to you, Martha, you, Jesse, and every other show here at Fox. And I'd ask Suzanne Scott to let me turn it over to CNN also, because I'd want everyone to know I'm innocent. I have no clue why they would come to my home, why they thought they would find this, and you should ask them if they found it. I hear what everybody's saying. This is a great political strategy you guys have articulated. In fact, if I ever get in trouble, I want you all to articulate one for me. What it's not is a legal strategy, because the legal strategy would be, and Judge, I would ask you this question in just my 30 seconds more I have here. If you were advising, put aside President Clinton, any client that had this happen to them, would you not say that search warrant enumerates what they were coming here to look for? Let's release that to the press. And if we believe there was some wrongdoing here, and you were my lawyer, Judge, I'd have you march me right into federal court this morning to say that this was illegal. They had no right to do this, and I want the world to know that not only am I innocent, I have no clue what these people were looking for. Now, the speculation about what this is about, January 6th, Georgia, New York, some classified documents, I have no clue. I've read all the reporting. I saw some reporting last week that said that there was this awful story, this 10-year-old little girl that was raped and was an incest case, and you had attorney generals across the country, including in those 2 states, said, we don't know what this case is about. We think the Democrats have made it all up, only to have to come back and recant to find out when the facts came out. So I think we should wait for the facts to come out here. The president is presumed innocent until proven otherwise. And I agree with that. But your speculation, I just think, is just a little
I don't think it's speculation at all. You do not break into a house of a guy that you've been working with for 9 months, that you have to admit has been cooperating with you for presidential records? No.
Can I ask you a question?
No. I'm going to answer your question.
Yes, ma'am.
And you do not do that and have guys with AR-15 and women, I might add, at the front of Mar-a-Lago in a situation like this where the man's about to announce for president, if he's going to run for president. But if I were the lawyer, the first thing I'd say is, as a citizen of the United States, I want to know from the Department of Justice, why you're doing this. I want to know from the FBI whether or not this is legitimate, because everything that you've done regarding Donald Trump has been illegal, illegitimate, and immoral, and the country knows it, and you have destroyed our faith in the justice system.
Just one question, Judge.
And it's not Donald Trump's fault, it's their fault.
His lawyers have that search warrant. They could release it.
And the government can answer the question.
All right. That was a great A block. You're welcome.